So we thought we'd talk a little bit today about how we've been collaborating. I'm Colin from the Barbarian group, and we've been working with the GE folks for around like 5 years on all sorts of different things in all sorts of different mediums. And I think the thing that we've been trying to do is tell very complicated, nuanced technology stories using a lot of art and creativity, and that's the kind of basis of our creative relationship, and we've done some really interesting stuff. So I'll let Katrina kind of tee up.
Yeah, so we've been lucky as a brand to partner with the Barbarian Group for close to 5 years. And I think, the thought was we needed to experiment in this space, especially when it was very new a few years ago. And our challenge as GE is that so many of our stories that we want to get across that tell the story of what we do beyond appliances and lighting and what people know us for are complicated technical stories. And so we started to think a lot about how visual content would help us better illustrate what we're doing. If I give you a white paper about a GNX jet engine, your eyes are probably going to glaze over. If I show you that jet engine rigged up for a nice test in Canada and start talking to you about how that powers the Dreamliner that you've probably flown, it's a much different experience. We launched our Instagram feed together a few years ago. We worked on a series called The GE Show for a number of years, and it was great, beautiful visual, and also very kind of intelligent video content on YouTube. And then we started thinking about sound and how we could maybe create a different or another kind of sensory experience around GE. Sound for GE is important to us in terms of understanding how our machines perform. So it's a data source for the maintenance and operations of our machines, but it's also a great kind of source of creativity.
And sound was something that we were kind of kicking around for a long time. I mean, we were really intrigued with like the consumer growth with SoundCloud and just sound as a medium, and how could we do something interesting but still sincere that still mapped back to like a business purpose or a business story. So what we're going to do is walk you through something really interesting that we just launched a couple months ago, and then at the end we'll kind of conclude with maybe about 6 or 7 things that we've learned from making just a ton of content and distributing it in really interesting ways. So with this first project, we worked with a producer called Matthew Deere, who's pretty amazing kind of electronic music artist and musician. And the conceit was we paired him with a GE kind of acoustic engineer, and he traveled around like the Global Research Center into like lots of different areas, and they talked about frequency and kind of how GE uses sound to be able to diagnose like the smallest things to determine if a machine is functioning at its like optimal performance. And what we did is a really interesting documentary about this, and I'd encourage you to look it up. It's a little bit long to show you today, given we're kind of trying to keep this concise. But and it also resulted in Matt building or kind of creating a completely new track, which we'll play for you later, that was based entirely on kind of GE like industrial samples ranging from jet engines to subsea pumps to like everything in between. He had a sample bank of something like over thousands of GE sounds that we kind of collected and that they sourced. So we made this really beautiful piece of film and we made this track, but I think what we wanted to focus on quite a bit today is you can make all the great content, but in a world where there's millions and millions of things competing for everyone's attention, both from publishers, from brands, things like that, like how do we kind of break through? And the answer in a lot of ways is how can you have to be just as creative with the distribution as you are with the assets that you made, right? It's not as simple as making something cool and then just kind of blindly porting it around the internet. There's like a level of finesse that I think some people don't give enough credit to. So one thing that we did that was really unique to this campaign, and it worked amazingly, is we did a partnership with BitTorrent, and it was interesting and progressive because a lot of people think about BitTorrent in a certain context of privacy, but we were looking at it as an incredibly powerful network for distributing things. So we packaged up the track, the video, and a bunch of the individual sound samples, and did a partnership with BitTorrent that was ended up being downloaded, I think it was 2 million times, which was pretty incredible. We worked with Drip FM, which is a really interesting new startup that allows people to basically subscribe to their favorite labels. And if you subscribe, you get every piece of content, every album, every track that that label puts out. So this is the way we got the track that Matt did kind of released to super fans of the label that he releases on, and he's a co-founder of. And we just saw it as a way, almost as an influencer means of distribution, getting a track into a super receptive audience really early. GE has been really, really progressive in terms of not just having a website with a bunch of white papers, but they take a very editorial tack. So on GE Reports, which is I suppose on the right
On
here,
the right, yeah.
it's basically they did a big interview and got into like the nuances and details of how this happened, what types of machines, talking about the frequencies, so on and so forth. So they actually used their own media to add a lot of depth to the to the project. We gave all the sound samples and the stem files to another kind of label mate of Matt's, and they released like a really interesting twist. And what was important about this is we had a really great cadence in terms of the documentary and the initial track, but then we made sure to have a few assets to kind of propel interest as like the weeks went on. And then it's available on Spotify as a track, so anytime anyone looks at the back catalog of Matthew Deere, like the collaboration, with GE is on there as well. So
Yeah, so we had a long list, thanks to these guys, of really kind of thoughtful distribution channels that map to an audience that loves music and loves Matthew and also loves technology. And we wanted to think as well about some ways that we might get a little bit more mainstream with the distribution. So we released the set of sound stems on the DJ2 app, which is the most widely used mobile and iPad app by DJs. And that bundle was downloaded about 10 million times, which for us, we were kind of really excited that this creative music community was kind of downloading these stems and thinking about using them in their own pieces. And then we were also thinking about what else can we do on YouTube. So, for the last year or so, we have been doing a lot of work with creators. We've been lucky to on Instagram, on Vine, and on YouTube. And for this piece in particular, we had a dancer named Nonstop come and do an original performance to the Drop Science track at our jet engine test facility in Peebles, Ohio. So it was like this perfect mix of really fun, beautiful, creative experience with our machines in the background.
And this is the track playing in the background, and these are all samples from GE machines that kind of comprise the track. So we'll play a little of this so you can kind of see both the amazing visuals and then hear some of the sounds. So
you can watch the rest of it on YouTube.
Yeah, I'm mindful of our time.
Thank you, Colin. Collaboration at work.
Yes, collaboration.
Okay.
But so with all this, I mean, we had very nuanced assets that were like for hardcore science people and hardcore music people. We had really interesting things like that were amazing mainstream assets. But a lot of this is just kind of making sense of ton of content delivered in a ton of different ways. And so we figured we kind of conclude with, over 5 years of collaboration, like what we've learned after making a lot of things.
Good stories take time. GE is a 300,000 employee company. We're in 160 countries. And it takes time to kind of figure out where are we operating in the most unexpected places. We have machines in the Australian desert, in the Arctic, testing in kind of the iciest Canadian plains ever. And so those are the experiences and the moments that we really want to make available to people. As Colin said, we parked our SoundCloud profile a couple years ago, and it took us a while to figure out how we create an experience that is really authentic to GE and additive to everything else that is out there.
I think what we enjoyed with this is we've done so much film, so much video, even games and interactive things. We wanted to kind of force ourselves to work in a medium that wasn't readily accessible or apparent to us. And it took a little bit of time to find the right thing, but that was fruitful. I alluded to this before, but we had lots of different constituencies and audiences for this, ranging from the kind of information omnivores that G's really interested in speaking to, the type of people that read Wired and Gizmodo and really nuanced tech things, but we also wanted to reach a mainstream audience to the extent we could. So make sure you have like the right assets that speak really sincerely to each kind of segment. And then to that point, you never really know what asset is going to perform. We kind of joke that it's putting 5 little paper boats in a stream and seeing which one catches the current. But in terms of your media planning and in terms of paid social, just have a plan to kind of back the right things on the fly and optimize on the fly.
And I think, there's so much, when we talk about content marketing, there's this kind of immediate urge to just publish a bunch of stuff and just put a bunch of stuff out there. And I think we try and take a second and be mindful of the experience that we're creating and the quality of that experience rather than pushing out as many pieces of content as we can. And our goal, we actually have this kind of on a slide, is to ignite a lighthearted curiosity around science and technology and a wonder by opening our doors and letting people see what happens on our factory floors and in our labs. And we try and hold that tone very true across all of the experiences that we create.
I think, speaking to the collaboration point of this, our role is when we're working with GE to make really interesting things, they need to ladder up to something interesting. It's very easy in a world of endless kind of shiny new platforms and tools. You can kind of get very tactical, and you can sometimes get a little bit too far away from what the brand narrative and the business story is. So I think that's the thing that is really, really important with an ongoing kind of collaborative relationship to maintain and not lose sight of that and kind of all the chaos. And then overinvest in the small details. I mean, this is an example of some art that we commissioned from Mike Chena, and he just did this as the cover art for the track. And it showed up everywhere, as it was posted and embedded around the internet. And Mike Chena has been a longtime collaborator with Ghostly, which is Matt's label, and they kind of have a good working relationship. But we loved how this, it's like a jet engine, but it's kind of showing the science, it's kind of showing the beauty and complexity, and that's obviously what we're trying to convey with a lot of the work. And then, I think Katrina and I are both really passionate about this point. Like, the internet rewards hard work and originality. We felt like we succeeded not because of a bajillion views or brand lift or things like that. It's because, music blogs were saying that how much they loved the track, or people that were very skeptical of branded content are like, actually, this is really amazing. So, that authenticity and when the kind of press speaks and when niche audiences speak and are favorable, that's really what we're looking for. So hopefully this has been useful to everyone, and I encourage you to check out all the assets, kind of let them play and enjoy. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Colin and Katrina. Steve Jobs famously once said, "People don't know what